weird news, honestly. Mark Gurman believes he doesn't feel sure about this himself. I think from his reporting that he has heard that the iPad Pro could feature an M4 chip and would be positioned as an AI-powered device. I have two issues with this. One, it's strange. Not impossible, but strange to introduce the M4 here. Like, that is odd.
Mm-hmm.
It would be even weirder for them to talk about this as an AI-powered device when nothing will change for another 6 weeks, like, right, at minimum. It's only as AI-powered as any other current product that Apple sells. Like, it's not... Okay, they may get the neural engine enhancements that every A&M series chip has had, right? That things that in Pixel Major on the iPad will happen quicker, but that's not making it any more AI powered than before. Just things happen faster. I would be fascinated to see if they're able to pull that off, but it would be surprising to me, honestly.
I could not believe this report.
Yep.
It doesn't make sense to me for so many reasons. It doesn't make sense in terms of the chip cycle. Like, this is doing a chip ahead of the chip cycle, ahead of the iPhone chip cycle. It's, what even is an M4 chip if it comes out a few months after the M3 chip? Also, wasn't this product supposed to be released like a month or two ago? And it was even closer to that. I wonder if there's some enthusiasm for this product that has gotten in the way, because I've heard people assuming it was an M4 to begin with, and I was like, no, we're not there yet. This is M3. This is late M3 cycle, not M4 cycle. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And the AI stuff, right? Like, the AI stuff is happening in June at WWDC, right? That's what we've all been told. So why is it that a month earlier there's a product launch that details AI features, but just for the iPad, and also has this chip that should probably not be available for 6 months? It doesn't. You're right. Mark Gurman is hedging, but it's also Mark Gurman.
Yeah, I think he has the same. I'm going to infer he has the same skepticism that we do. That on the face of what he has said, it doesn't make sense. But
yeah,
but I can understand a scenario where take the AI part out of it. That the M4 chip is so good for what they're going to announce that they're just putting it in here now.
Yeah.
Because it's the best thing for September, October time.
Right. So let's say I don't believe this, but I have a scenario where this happens.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is. We already did our draft. We'll talk about it. But I have a scenario where this happens. So scenario 1, the chip. What if the AI stuff really did, Apple was concerned enough about the rise of AI stuff that while they couldn't change their roadmap, there was a way to expedite a generation where they're like, this is going to be way better, and expedite the base chip from that generation and pull it forward a little bit.
Mm.
Is that impossible? No, it doesn't. It's not something they've done before, but first off, they can call anything an M4. It could literally be an M3 on a different process, and they could call it M4.
Yeah.
So there's that, right? How different is it? And is it possible that they felt like they were going to expedite the low-end M4 generation chip and get it out now? Although, keep in mind, there's an M3 chip, according to Gurman, that hasn't even shipped yet in a product, right?
Yeah.
That they're planning on shipping. So how would this be an M4? But I'm just saying, just because I'm trying to play this out, is there a scenario where they kind of did a red alert and they were targeting this generation and saying, can we get this? Or maybe they got it, the fab at TSMC came up that could make this, and they're like, you know what? We could put this in that iPad because it's not going to ship in the kind of quantity where we need to get it up and running. And then, by the time we need this in some iMacs or a MacBook Air, it's going to be 6 months from now, and we can put it in now, and it will give us a little bit of a benefit. So,
and if we're talking ourselves into this, right? We've been expecting these iPads for 2 months. So,
I know. And so although, so
and then
that
also,
actually
if I make one last point, and
yeah.
what if some of the features that are AI focused, they realized we can only have this on new hardware?
Okay. So this is a good segue into my other point here, which is, remember, they were supposed to come earlier, according to Mark Gurman, and then they weren't. And one of the things that he kept saying was because of the software update. And again, I'm not saying I believe this report because I don't, but he said because of the software update. And we read that as being, well, they got to add in the software for the keyboard, and they got to add in the software for the pencil.
Too. I think
right?
That's how it seemed.
But again, just spitballing here, I don't think this is likely, but I'm just going to put it out there. What if there were some features that were plausibly AI related? If Apple's really feeling the heat about AI, plausibly AI related, that were previously going to be held for another version of the software, for an 18 beta and then an 18 release, that were far enough along that they put them, and again, that they pulled them back and said, let's make this work on a very late 17 release on iPad OS, mark it as a beta, but let us ship it in May and say because then we're going to be able to say these new iPads are AI monsters, and it's going to get some of the heat off of us.
Because
is
realistically,
that impossible?
Like, is there even
again? It's not.
If it's a Siri model, right? We'll just say, for the sake of it, we'll call it Siri, right? And it's doing some stuff.
Yeah.
Is there even an SDK for that anyway? Like, does it need
is there a
to
developer
wait?
story at all?
Does it need to wait for that? And they can also still have like hey, we have a new AI kit that you can integrate with. But you're right. Could they stage it out? Could there be a part of it that's like it doesn't really need beta testing because it's not necessary? I don't know.
It could also be literally that they tie pages and notes and stuff into an LLM.
Yep.
As a beta.
Yep.
And it's not the Apple thing at all. It's just some other features. And they're like, look, AI, more to come. And then they walk away. So I guess what I'm saying is I can't entirely discount this rumor, because if Apple was desperate enough to show that they're not behind in AI, they are not as far behind in AI as they're portrayed to be, and to make the stock market, make their investors feel good about it. And I'm not saying that is quite the opposite. That is not the way to develop a product.
Can I just stay on that for a second? Because a lot of people say this.
Yeah.
There is a possibility that Apple do not want this perception inside of the technology community. That it's not like just for investors. It's that like generally in the community, they are considered as behind. And also, do you know what this is before? It's before Google I/O.
Yeah.
Where it is very expected that Google is about to drop huge Gemini integrations into Android. And that they are going to potentially keep some of it for themselves and their own devices. And maybe they want to get ahead of that too. I don't know. Like, we're in for what is unprecedented times for a while because the playing field has been leveled a bit.
Right. So what I would say is it's not necessarily about the stock market, but it is also about the stock market.
Sure.
It is about general perception about it. It is about competition, which is great. Also, I can see Apple saying, we have some of this stuff now, right? Like, so I say this isn't how you design and develop a product, but I can see them saying, you know what? We have some of this stuff now, and we're going to have more in the future. And we've got these new iPads coming out, and then we're not going to update iPads for a year and a half. So if we're going to do this, maybe we should, if we've got it and we can make some claims now, let's make some claims now, and let's change the narrative going into WWDC with our first, and it doesn't have to run anywhere else yet, but like our first, super AI powered product, and it's the iPad Pro, let's say, and that sets the table. So again, do I think that this is likely? I kind of don't. Do I think that Apple will position the iPad Pro as an AI-powered device? Well, probably, because everything is AI-powered. They position the MacBook Air as an AI-powered device, too, to a certain extent. So if they add a feature here or there in that software update, they will certainly, if it's got any machine learning algorithms in it, they will make claims that it is. But if it's got something where they're like, you know what, we pulled pages, AI-powered pages forward or whatever, then they'll do that. If they've got some APIs that they can that were basically at the ready, that they changed their priority on 4 months ago to get them in a little bit sooner, marked as a beta, because remember, it is the counter argument is it's only a month till WWDC, which means it's really only like 5 or 6 weeks before they would release a beta of the new features. So could you polish them a little more so that they fit in the existing OS and still call them beta? And I know developer beta is scary, but like you give them an extra 3 or 4 months. Like, all of this is possible. I think the chip part is the most outlandish one because it goes against everything they've done. And also, like I've said all along, these Apple's chips already have AI ML capabilities. They've between the neural engine and the stuff they've been doing on the GPU, like they have lots of that stuff already built in. It doesn't require like to flip the switch to go to an AI chip. Like they don't need to do that. So I'm super skeptical, but I can't just say it's not going to happen because I think you got to look at the fact that Apple is fighting this perception in the industry, in the stock market, just in general, that they have lost the plot. And although you might be like, they'll just shrug it off, they always do. Yeah, but Tim Cook is going on the industry quarterly analyst calls talking about how they're going to do AI. He's doing interviews and saying AI is a big focus for us, and we're going to make some big AI announcements later this year. That is a sign that they are very concerned about perception. Mm-hmm. And we saw with the MacBook Air release that they've changed how they refer to features, and they are talking about AI power now, which they always soft pedaled. They're now hard selling it
and calling
because
it AI.
They are concerned about their perception. So we do exist in a world where Apple is deeply concerned about the perception that they are losing it when it comes to AI. So while this is an extreme, bizarre assertion that it's going to be an M4 chip with AI features, I don't think we can rule it out because Apple is feeling that pressure, and that might have led Apple to make some surprising off-pattern judgments a few months ago, which potentially delayed this product, right? Especially, I'll bring us back to that original report, delayed because of software.
Yeah. I'm still not convinced, but I'm more convinced than I was when I read this report. Like, I feel like we've talked ourselves around on it, that I can understand a scenario in which it would happen, but I'm still not sure that it will.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they will position it as an AI-powered device, right? Yeah. But like, and it would not be, again, I just want to say, it would not be that wild. I know everybody's like, oh, they're breaking their pattern. They're not going to do that. But like, it would not be that wild for them to say, we have new versions of iWork that have AI features in them, right? I mean, they could do something like that. That's not everywhere in the OS as a pervasive thing. But you're right, Mike. They could also say, here's a preview. You can turn on this beta preview of Siri 2 or Siri Pro or whatever, Siri AI on the iPad Pro. And people are like, what do you mean it's just on the iPad Pro? And they're like, wait and see. They could do that too. So certainly, I would guarantee there will be an AI story at this event about the iPad. There will absolutely be. The question is it as kind of radical as it seems here in this report, or is it more what we expected, which is Apple's going to, like with a MacBook Air, they're going to kind of push it and say, yeah, AI, but we're really going to need to wait until the developer conference to see more. I don't know.